already at 7.
Hello. So robots are everywhere. They are in our offices, in warehouses, in factories, but they're also in our homes and part of our entertainment. So what does this mean? What does this mean for our societies, the way we experience robotics, and everything else that is incredibly hard to understand? So that's what we're talking about today. Nancy, I want to have you explain a little bit about 2-Bit Circus in terms of the robotics element of it, the development. Can you explain a little bit about what you're doing and why?
Sure. 2-Bit Circus is a band of crazy inventor, roboticist, developer, coder, designer, media maker, industrial designer, fun people. And we actually launched a micro amusement park 9 weeks ago. Micro amusement park, we call it micro because it's not 180 acres, but 3,600 square meters of immersive play. And our mission is to bring people together elbow to play. So it's using VR, AR, arcade games, modern midway games. And what you're seeing right now is what we call Guillermo del Toro, which is really a Rube Goldberg machine, a robotic bar with a cycloptic eye that tracks its attendees and blows you kisses and the like. It's really more of a ballet mécanique. But robotics are definitely alive and well throughout our entertainment complex. And they do different things like tracking your activity with machine learning and code computing and interaction via gameplay. So I think that summarizes it pretty well, and I'll turn it over to Dor.
Okay, so Dor, you're looking at a slightly different angle here. So you're looking at robots as helping the elderly. If you can tell us a bit more about that one.
Yeah. As a company, we bring robots to life, and actually intelligent systems like autonomous machines that are around us to life. And our first product that we built, the hardware and the software, is called LEQ. It is a proactive robot, so it doesn't wait for the user to talk to it. Rather, it understands the scene, and using cognitive computing, it will approach the individual. And in this case, we work with older adults, designed for them and with them to help them stay connected and engaged and avoid loneliness and social isolation. We call it the sidekick for happier aging. So if you can cue the video, you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Mary, Megan sent a new photo. Would you like to look at it?
Yes, please. Oh, he's a gem.
Would you like to respond to Megan's post?
Sure.
Recording in 3, 2, 1.
LEQ reminds me to take my meds, arranges rides for me. She even reminds me of all my appointments.
Mary, don't forget bridge with the Golden Girls at 1 p.m. Would you like to practice?
Oh, I don't need to practice.
I didn't catch that. Do you want to play bridge or not?
Oh, fine. Let's play.
Mary, you wanted to Skype with Liz. Would you like to do that now?
Oh, sure, that sounds great. Hey, honey.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, I just noticed, is it a little cool in the house?
Oh, it feels great. I'm doing my Tai Chi now.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, Mom. Just checking in. You take care.
I'm fine, sweetie. Chat later.
There's a new TED Talk waiting for you if you'd like to watch it. Or perhaps you could go for a walk.
That's a good idea, LEQ.
Great, Mary. I'll be right here when you get back.
Great.
Okay, so Dor, can you talk a little bit about the design of LEQ, in that it's clearly not a humanoid robot, yet it seems to have some kind of emotional kind of like level to it?
Yeah, we don't believe in humanoid robots. We call it an objectoid. And really it was important for us to give it body language as a way for expression, Humans use voice or verbal communication around 10% of the time for effective communication. The rest is our body language, our facial expressions, even our use of silence and our gaze. So we gave that to the robot, but we wanted to be true to the fact that it's not a human. It's a machine, hopefully an endearing one. So it has this, I guess, lamp-shaped body, which was very inspired by Pixar and their logo. We use movement, we use lights, we use sound effects. But we don't call it a human. It's not a humanoid. The name doesn't sound like a human. And if you would ask LEQ what her favorite food is, she'll, just as an example, she'll always ground you to the fact that she's a machine. Okay. So she'll say, I don't know, I like electrons. They're yummy.
So, Nancy, in terms of the robots in your amusement park, what's the design that you're looking at there? How do you want them to engage with your audience? How does that work?
Well, it's really important to bring people together to play, since that's our mission. And I think most of the technology that we're using is to facilitate that kind of interaction. So in all cases, however you define a robot, it's really about machine learning and language that makes you interact and play. So even a joystick is a robotic control. So it really depends on the zone of play that you're in within our park. And there are multiple zones. Some are story escape rooms that are more episodic. Some are VR, 4-person or more, haptic, free roam. And they're always measuring where you are in relationship to things. So there's a subtlety to some of the robotics, but there's also data gathering and an understanding of what people enjoy and how they engage together. One of our story rooms is called Space Squad in Space. And it's really a 6 to 8-person cooperative story where you have to launch a spaceship into space on a mission. And if one person doesn't do one part of the gameplay, it won't take off. But it's controlled by a robotic voice. So a series of cues.
So in some respects, although you have the robotic bartender, the roboticness is actually spread throughout the entire site. The entire site is a giant robot in some respects that these humans have to travel through.
Yes, exactly right.
Fantastic. Yeah. Do you see places where robots are appropriate and where they're not appropriate?
I think that, I love what Dora's doing by bringing the elderly an opportunity to engage with technology. And I think there is, in advancing years, we've noticed, I'm sure all of you have noticed, that older relatives have a little trouble programming the VCR. And I think it's wonderful to make that facilitation possible. So the emotional accessibility of that character, where I'm sure most of your research and development is really focused, is really important. I think that making things accessible and approachable and emotionally engaging is really important. Story is fundamental to everything I believe in terms of front-facing people. So that's an important quotient.
Yeah, so how important is that to you, that kind of creating the character?
Yeah, so I often joke that our company has a left side of the brain and a right side of the brain. So the right side of the brain is PhDs in machine learning, cognitive computing, creating this machine that understands context and then can decide by itself what to do and approach you at the appropriate time. We're not used to a machine just like talking to us and saying, hey Steve, how about we listen to an opera together? Right, so that's part of it. But then there's the left side of the brain or the left side of the company, and we sit this way in our office as well, which is all about how do you actually create an experience around that humans will relate to, that will cause them to actually accept it and enjoy it. And the biggest surprise we had when we started putting this product in people's homes, it's for the last 8 months in people's homes, ranging from 62 to 97, was that really what they're excited about is the experience. They tell us that LEQ for them is not a device and it's not a person, it's a new entity. And with that and Nancy, you're right on with the word character, with that comes their expectation that this character will surprise them, will not say the same thing, at all, ever, will act in ways that they can't predict in advance and almost take a life of its own. So definitely we spend a lot of time thinking about that and also creating multi-modal experiences that kind of like puppeteering combine movements and sounds and lights and speech in a way that feels lifelike. And in that case, I think we're probably very similar in very different use cases.
Definitely, definitely. We have a very unique space within our micro amusement park, which is an interactive club, where 100 people can engage with touchscreens to play essentially a game show, but maybe I'd call it Twitch in a physical world, and where you're allowed to go up on stage and compete with the room or compete in teams within the room. And it is built on a platform that is pretty robotic because it's modular. And it's our own proprietary software, but it's got kind of drag and drop Visual Basic to it. And I think those things are as much a part of the emotional patina between robot and persona and how to make an emotional experience. It is a dialogue, after all. And I think that's where robots are really interesting, is how we're actually having that conversation with them and putting them to use in such a way that brings us closer together and communicates a more emotional space and time.
That's really interesting because these are still robots, right? Even though we're trying to have an emotional response to it, they don't have an emotional response back to us. I mean, at what point do we risk forgetting that they aren't real in the terms and sentient in the way we are? I mean, perhaps that's why you don't have a humanoid robot, for example, because is there a risk that we forget where that line is? Or in fact, do we start erasing that line? And if so, is that a problem?
So I don't know if it's a bad thing, right? I mean, people love their cars. People hit their computers in frustration when you have a beach ball or a blue screen. So feeling emotion is a real human thing. I think it's important to us and ethically important to us as the people that design these things that we're always grounded by a ground truth, which is this is not a person. So I think we actually encourage people to have endearment and to like the product. That's good for us. But it's always clear that this is a piece of plastic that can talk to you. And within those confines, you can like it, you can hate it, you can enjoy it, you can laugh by it, you can want it to be around you. But I think when roboticists and AI developers start crossing that line and start having the AI pretend to be human, they're doing something very dangerous. It's something that will actually ethically create a reaction from people. Because I can only imagine if I'm the one being tricked, having a phone conversation with an AI and figuring that 5 minutes in after I'm really polite to it and asking it if it enjoys the weather here in Lisbon, finding out that I was tricked would be a very annoying emotional response. So I think a bottom line is, yes, endearment is going to happen with robots. Yes, robots are going to be all around us. I think it's a good thing if it's honest. And one of the great examples I can give is one of our investors is iRobots that make the Roombas. People name their Roomba. People turn on the lights for the Roomba so it won't be alone in the dark. They've told me about people that take their Roomba on a cruise with them. And, I think that's cute. I do. But never do they think that that Roomba is a person, right? It's just a vacuum cleaner that beeps, and they like it.
Well, but the Roomba learns your behavior.
Sure.
And so it's a little difficult to separate the church and state of persona applied to a robot and the robot, because it's learning about you. And if any of you use something like Waze to navigate, or Uber, it knows your home address. It knows when you're going to leave for work. It'll tell you the best route when you don't even log in, and it'll prompt you if you allow it to. So there's a lot of responsibility in how you engage with that learning that robotic implement does. And that's an interesting responsibility factor for us as humans.
But looked at from the other side, you seem to be using the robots to help humans engage with each other as well.
Yes.
So that's a kind of a different kind of wrinkle on that.
Definitely, and very much on purpose, because that's our mission. We want to have fun with other people and get them out of their devices into the real world to participate and learn from one another and realize that you can go to that joyful, childlike state and have a good time together.
Is there a risk we talk a lot about robots taking our jobs away, and that being a bad thing from an employment point of view. But is there a risk that we give up something by not doing some of these jobs, like by not going and phoning my grandmother because I know LEQ will be there, or by interacting with a robot bartender rather than talking to a person? Or is there a risk we lose something through that?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I feel sorry for the audience that I end up agreeing with Nancy, but we use LEQ as a piece of technology to bring people together. So think of it this way. Most grandchildren that we have interviewed and worked with don't want to call their grandma on the phone using voice, not because they don't love their grandma. They don't like calling anybody on the phone. Okay. Right? What they'd love to do is send a selfie, send a text message, and in the case of my 5-year-old, send an endless row of emojis. However, the older adult hasn't grown around this technology. It's built for the 24 to 35-year-old demographic and so on. So what we use LEQ for is to bridge that gap. We work closely with Facebook to allow the family to use Facebook Messenger, the kids, the grandkids, over to their grandma, and then it magically appears on LEQ. She reads the message, looks at the grandma, and says, "Do you want to reply?" And that combination of reading it, showing the picture, commenting on the picture, creating almost eye contact and soliciting a response is increasing engagement, and voila, grandma is on social media, grandma is talking to the grandchild directly, usually about their common enemy, which is the parent. But that's great, right? So I don't think we're going to replace human contact. I think human contact is crucial for all of us. But hey, we don't all live at home with our grandma. And if we can use technology to bring us together and overcome barriers and allow more an equal playing field of leveraging technology, but in different front ends, that learn us and adapt to us and make it available for us in ways that are easy for us to use. And I think it's awesome.
Okay.
Well, it should free up a lot of time. So the question is humanity going to go from where it is now in size to something much bigger as a couch potato? And hopefully we'll get out of doors and do things that are better for each other, some sustainability activities, and yeah, I'm with you.
Right. So I guess the question is, what do we do with the time we get, right? How do we use that best to improve ourselves or improve the world, rather than just, like you say, sit on the couch?
To learn something, to read.
Yeah. No, absolutely. One very quick, because we're running absolutely out of time, a quick response. How big do you think, how far do you think the robot revolution will go in our lifetime?
Yeah, we're going to be surrounded by multiple robots. We already are. We just don't think of our dishwasher as a robot, but it is. But more interestingly, by multiple personas that will be our sidekicks and our guides to functioning in life. And this will happen within 5 years.
Okay, Nancy?
Massive. It's already here.
Brilliant. Okay, we are out of time, so thank you very much to Dor and to Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.